Hey guys, welcome back. Every day on Bigger Pockets, Reddit, and Quora, I get questions about the COVID recession and what that will do to home prices. And believe it or not, a lot of people are actually hoping for a crash so they can get cheaper home prices. And there are two reasons I don't think that's going to happen and why that may not play out the way everyone's hoping. First reason, supply and demand, right? So typically we see home prices go fluctuate based on supply and demand. It's just like any other commodity. For the last 5 years, we've seen some pretty high, I wouldn't say inflated, but pretty high home prices or climbing home prices because of supply. We've been hearing it year over year. Inventory is low, inventory is low, inventory is low. So the way we measure inventory is amongst the supply. I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole nother video. You can Google it. That'll make this video way too long. But inventory has been historically low. People just don't want to sell their homes. And namely because people aren't looking at homes as an economic investment. They're looking at it as more of a place to live, unlike in 2008. So that's kind of a good thing because that's what homes are first and foremost. They're a place to live and an investment later. So a lot of people aren't selling their homes because they just don't have to, right? Which is a pretty wise decision. You don't need to trade up. It's not just like, oh, it's cheap money. People are doing the fiscally responsible thing. However, that does drive home prices up because if people aren't selling their homes, when a home goes up, there are a lot of buyers and they drive the price up. Supply and demand. But what we're going to see is that demand is going to go down, but I don't expect supply to go up. So we're going to see is probably equilibrium, right? We're going to see somewhere where prices pretty much stay the same. So I don't think that if prices were too high for you to jump in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, then they'll probably remain the same, right? So I don't see prices going down. It's pretty obvious, but if you don't catch it, a lot of people are unemployed is the first thing. So with people unemployed, they're going to have economic uncertainty and they may not want to make a big purchase like a house. But even for people who do want to, they may not find the access to capital. And that leads me to my second point. The reason why it's going to look different and may be harder for people to jump in, even with lower prices, is that access to capital is going to be harder. We've already seen that. A lot of people I haven't seen it in the news, but I've seen it talking to lenders. So it's not making the big, sexy headlines. Oh, loans are harder to get. They're talking about interest rates being historically low or interest rates going negative. That's what makes headlines. But debt to income ratios being tightened, no, nobody really cares about that. But it does affect you and it does affect buyers. Other thing, credit requirements. Every bank I know that's going to do an FHA right now, a few months ago, there were some banks that would do as low as 580. And then there's some that almost used to do 620. Most every bank I know right now is only doing 640. Since there's less access to capital, there'll be less buyers. But there'll also be less homes, and that'll probably meet an equilibrium. But real estate is all local, and different places have been affected by COVID differently, right? But do expect prices to probably not see the same growth that we've seen in the last 5 years, year over year. All right, so that goes into my next part was access to capital. And if you didn't have the access to capital before, you may find it hard to find the access to capital now. There are a lot of ways to access capital, and I have a video series about funding your deal, so watch that. I can say right now, as I'm making this video, some of those avenues may be temporarily blocked. Like HELOCs, which is one of my favorite ways to access money. Another way of cash out refinances and BRRRRs may all be coming to a halt. So I would say if that's your exit strategy, if you're going into the deal and that's your exit strategy is to refi your cash out, you may want to make sure that you're lining that up and getting a relationship with a lender and maybe even looking at a second exit strategy. So as far as getting into a deal, it may be harder because of access to capital, and getting out of a deal may be a little harder because of buyers. There won't be a lot of buyers. They won't have access to capital, and you may not have access to capital, have that second exit strategy, such as a cash out refinance, and then just rent it. So that's what I'm looking at. Like, what as a new investor, instead of all the opportunities, and there are a lot of opportunities, I just want to talk about some of the risks because a lot of people are hoping for a crash. And so I just don't want to deflate anyone's bubble, but I do want to put realistic lenses on the economic situation. Because usually crashes aren't good for everybody, and they're usually not good for most people. There's some people that are able to win. If somebody was hoarding up stacks of cash, then they'll buy a property maybe a little cheaper. Or they'll come across distress deals and they'll be able to fund those quicker and get much lower prices. So really the whole moral of the story is if you were in a great place to buy properties and get good deals 3 years ago or 2 years ago or even 1 year ago, then this will probably work out better for you. If you weren't able to because prices were too high and you didn't have access to capital, well, prices probably won't go down much and the access to capital might be a lot harder. However, interest rates will probably stay low. And as far as foreclosures, a lot of people are like, will there be a flood of foreclosures like in 2008? Probably not. The government is all about bailing people out this time around. So this economic downturn, how long will the government have to and how long the government's appetite for doing that will last? We just don't know. But the government has already shown that they're going to bail people out. They've already started allowing people to put forbearances on mortgages, student loans, and all other type of government insured debt. So because of that, I don't see a bunch of foreclosures just hitting the market. Plus, there's a lot of systems in place that help homeowners stay in their homes that was put in place in 2008 that are still in place that they can take advantage of. So even if you get a little bit behind on your payments, there's a couple of lifelines that you can take advantage of, right? So I don't see a bunch of foreclosures flooding the market. And here's the other thing I think that's going to block foreclosures. Banks. Back to supply and demand. If banks do see an increase of foreclosures, I don't think they'll all release them at the same time. Just because a bank is holding a property doesn't mean they have to sell it. And banks have been known to restrict the supply of foreclosures for whatever reason, but we can just probably assume to keep the price of them from just tanking. So even if we do see a lot of foreclosures go back to the bank, we probably won't see a lot of foreclosures hit the market. So it's like that third safeguard. And what that does, well, that keeps a lot of inventory because if you have a lot of foreclosures that no one's living in and it's not available to sell or rehab, well, inventory is low. So what I do expect is to see rents go up for certain properties. So with a lot of people buying, people still need a place to live. So if my nest egg was wiped out or my savings were wiped out because of COVID, I'm going to want to replenish that. And that may mean taking slightly lower rent. Renting into a B or C place instead of an A place and saving a few $100s a month. Well, what that's going to do is strain the B and C markets where most people live already. We're going to see as more A renters, people who typically rented in A, spec A properties, move into B and C properties, which is going to increase the demand. However, the supply is probably not going to go up. So that's going to increase the price and it's going to create more competition. And we're also going to see a lot of people who can't buy, they're going to be renting. And if we do see foreclosures, well, those people will still be renting also. So either way, we're going to probably see some government intervention that's going to keep people in their homes, but that also means they're going to keep people in rentals. So we'll probably see more money around Section 8. And secondly, we'll probably see home prices staying pretty much the same because people won't want to sell their houses for a loss, especially if they don't have money to get into another house. If you're not buying a new house, then there's no reason to sell a house. And that leaves pretty much the properties that everybody looks for that are distressed, death and divorce and distressed properties, right? Where people have to sell them. And those are always been out there. Those are usually pretty good deals to get because people over the barrel will have to sell a property. So that's what I imagine is going to happen. It's going to be a much slower real estate market. There won't be as much houses for sale. There won't be many buyers. It's just really going to slow down. Houses probably, instead of being on the market for just a week or two before an offer, we'll probably see houses on the market for a few months before an offer. And that'll be the norm, that maybe you won't get an offer for 45 days instead of getting an offer in 45 minutes in some markets like now. So that's what I think the market's going to look like. I don't think it's going to be, there's still going to be deals. You're still going to have to work for them. You're still going to have to go out there and find people who need to sell their house. You're still going to have to analyze deals. I think exit strategies will definitely change. And I think access to capital, we've already seen that change. So if you're a new investor, you still got to follow all the fundamentals of finding good deals. You still got to follow all the fundamentals of funding good deals. So that's not going to change. It's not going to be easy properties and easy money anytime soon. But if you're willing to get a property, below market, put some money and work into it and put it back on the market, you may not be able to sell it, but you probably will be able to rent it for a much better return than you have seen in previous years. So it's probably a great time to jump in the rental market. All right. Thanks for watching as always. Hopefully it said something that you liked, so please click the like button below. And if you want to see more videos from me, click the subscribe button and you'll get notified as soon as they come out. Thank you.